I believe that in leadership, a lot of it is about being able to help the other person recognize how much that they can lead themselves.
Mm, love
And
that.
the best way that a person will develop that ability is by learning the art of asking really good quality questions. Yo, welcome back to Mo's Flow, the show where souls grow and hearts glow. And today, what I wanted to share was just a little bit about something that's been on my chest and on my in my head recently, which is this idea about integrity in leadership. And the reason I wanted to talk a lot about this is because um, on my journey as a leader, this is something that I've been going through for my entire life. I think even when I was a kid in school, like I was still having experiences of stepping into leadership positions and being that type of person. But then it's evolved where initially it started off and it was just leading kids in the playground with games and sports and things, to then like in more formal roles as captain, and transitioning into entrepreneurship and business. And I definitely say that out of all of the experiences that I've had, leading in business has definitely been the most challenging, the most difficult. But whilst it has been, it's taught me the most. So I've been a leader in my business for the last 3 years at least, and that's being a leader of other people. But being a leader of myself is something that I had to really work on the most, because I truly believe that before you lead others, you have to be able to lead yourself. And this ties really nicely into the topic of conversation today about integrity, because one of the things that I believe was probably the biggest mistake that I made on my journey is that I kind of saw it as if you start off leading yourself, and then after you've done that for a certain period of time, transition to leading other people. And then it's one or the other. You stop leading yourself, you graduated from that, and then you start leading other people and focusing all on them. And I'm not sure exactly why I had that mindset, but I think it was also a little bit, as they say, it's a little bit like when you're dreaming, not grounded in reality, but more like fantasy. That's what it was. I was fantasizing about having a kingdom, having an organization where all I had to do was just tell people what to do, or sit back and do nothing myself. And I had to really reflect on this, because the main question that I was asking was, was I doing this because I wanted to get somewhere, or was I doing it because I actually loved the process? And if I'm being totally honest, I think I didn't love the process the way that I thought I did. There were definitely moments in my journey where I enjoyed doing certain things. I enjoyed transforming people's lives. I enjoyed learning. I enjoyed being challenged. But then a lot of the journey as well was doing stuff that was either quite mundane, boring, risky, things that, yeah, felt overwhelming. So because of that, I almost wanted to skip that part of the journey and get to this place of I can sit back now, and do nothing. But the truth is, in leadership, the difference between leadership and management, and real leadership is not about just managing your people, which is the type of leadership that most of us are exposed to when we go into a regular job. You know, like I had about 20 jobs by the time I was 23, 24. And in every single one of those jobs, I really didn't feel as though there was much true leadership that was exemplified. And if there was any, like at the height of the leadership, it was, you know, someone who had actually gone through every single rank to then have the authority to go and manage. But what you didn't really see too often was an example of real leadership where the people who were in those positions were still doing the things that were the fundamentals. And, you know, the way that I was reflecting on this was, it's like, if you look at in history, the greatest leaders of all time, I look at people like Jesus Christ, I look at people like the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And, you know, one of the things that is really evident with him is that, like, the core fundamentals and principles, he didn't tell people to do things that he wasn't exemplifying himself. In fact, he led by example by doing the core basics forever. It wasn't like, no, I've done this now, I'm passing it on to another person, teaching, and I'm going to stop doing the 5 daily prayers. I'm going to stop doing, you know, my duties as a leader. So that's what I feel like we haven't seen the connection of in the business world and in these examples of history where people have led these huge movements and created legacies that have lasted the test of time. And I believe that right now, the world that we're going into is a world where conscious leadership and leadership with integrity is going to become the new necessity. And one of the reasons why I truly believe this is because of the way that the world is crying out for it and how much demand there's going to be for conscious leadership in the future when intelligence rises so much with AI to a point where people no longer will respect leaders just based off of the knowledge that they have or the results. People are going to be becoming a lot more selective about who they're following as leaders. And so I believe that the standard is going to have to rise. And before, it was just good enough for you to sit back and be in a management position. But I believe that people won't tolerate that type of leadership anymore. And it's going to require a type of leadership which has the marriage of both the management side, where you're in a position of authority that people respect because of what you've done, what you achieved, and who you are. But at the same time, they respect you because you're a person who has humility, and you show that by demonstrating that not only you can do the basics, but that you do the basics. And so in my journey, like, the biggest mistake that I personally made as a leader is that as soon as I was tempted to take my foot off the gas, to stop doing the basics because I had other people that were doing it within my organization, as soon as I was tempted to like completely stop, then that's when I lost my integrity. And if you don't know what integrity means, by the way, integrity is about the inner alignment and consistency between your thoughts, your behaviors, your feelings, and it's having everything that's in line rather than having discrepancies. So that's like one way that you can show integrity. Another way that you can show integrity, and this is a big reason as to why I started to put out my my content a lot more consistently right now. And a big reason why is because I had this huge epiphany, which was, oh my God, like for such a long time, I feel as though the version of myself that I've been putting out on Instagram, Facebook, social media, like that version of me is just so different to who I really am. And I feel like the reason that I was putting out that version is because it's what I was being taught. It's what I thought I had to do in order to get results and create success and profits. But the downside of that was that although it was good in being able to get some quick results, I wasn't happy with the way that I was perceived by others before they actually started to get to know who I was. And it was really interesting because what would happen would be like, on the one side, I'd have people that would meet me in person and they'd be saying some things about me like, wow, like we love your energy. We love your, the way that you're in service, the way that you just share genuinely from your heart, you're authentic and things like this. But then when people were seeing me on social media, then I think the way that they were viewing me was like, all I cared about was making money, or all I cared about was business, because I talked a lot about that. I did sometimes share about my story, but it was very rare. I was never truly consistent with it. And so what I'm sharing here is that there was actually a lack of integrity between my digital profile, my digital brand, and my actual regular profile that I have in real life. And in 2025, I believe that for any leader, that is a big problem, because social media is massive leverage for you to be able to connect with people all around the world. And you never know who's going to be listening to you. It could be somebody in Australia, New Zealand, America, US, and that could be the person who is genuinely wanting and requiring your help right now. So it just, what I believe is, putting out content just allows more so for God to do his work. And I really feel like as of recent, especially with the algorithm improving, as of recent, like even some of the videos that I've been getting shown at the right time, I'm just like, wow, I really needed to hear this message right here, right now. And so if this is how I feel, imagine what it would be like if I started to put out content and was able to give people this similar type of experience. So yeah, it was a bit of a weird one, because for me personally, like not seeing the person that I'm coaching, helping, transforming physically there in person has been something that I've had to work through, because I feel like it's almost like my mind has been so stuck in the past and has not adjusted to this new era where like people just don't like to show themselves but still like to receive, which is totally fine as it is, because at the end of the day, that's just a good way that people can meet you, connect with you, by you taking that step first. Again, this is in leadership. It takes me back to when I first connected with my $1 billion business mentor in Barcelona. And I remember when I was there, like I was shown a different type of leadership that just absolutely blew my mind, because this was a guy who was at that event. He was like the main speaker, and back then I'd only just got started out, barely online, and I was just very nervous, wasn't confident in myself. So whilst I was at this event, I was just kind of like on the sidelines. And then this guy, this mentor, reaches out to me and introduces himself. And that in itself just absolutely blew my mind, because I was like, why would anyone want to like reach out to me, and not vice versa, if he's in a position where he doesn't need help from me? And then when we entered into the conversation, it was like a double mind blown moment, because then he started to actually be curious, ask questions, and he was he was serving me and coaching me. So what it taught me about leadership is that, real leadership is about surrender and being able to allow for what God can channel through you to the right person at the right time, and being able to go into the ocean with your intuition and allow for that whisper to speak to you, and then listen to it as you want to be able to go and serve that person who will really be able to benefit from whatever it is that you're going to be sharing with them. And I've had a few moments of that myself where it went full circle, and I gave that experience to other people who said like, wow, I needed to really hear that message from you in that moment. So that was a life-changing moment and experience for me. But going back to what I was saying about integrity, if you don't have that integrity as a leader, then the consequences of this is that you start polluting the essence of your culture, and that character flaw of your own, of losing that integrity, then starts to duplicate. And in leadership, the worst thing about it is that you have to hold a standard that is higher than everybody else's, because there's something that's called the leadership gap. And how the leadership gap works is that whatever it is that you are going to put in to your business or to your endeavors, then whoever's going to be following you, like, they're going to have a gap in terms of what their maximum inputs are going to be. And that maximum for them most likely is never going to be higher than what your inputs are or what your standard is. And so if your integrity is like, let's say, a 9 out of 10, then you can't expect that your leaders are going to be a 9 out of 10. You got to expect that they're going to be maybe a 5 or a 6, right? But for myself, it was like my integrity may have been about a 4 or a 5. And in some areas, a 0, because you don't just have integrity in one area, there's integrity across many different areas. And so like any area where it's lower than a 5 or a 4, then just expect that the character and the leadership that is going to be displayed by the people who are going to be following you, like, that's not going to be higher than yours, and it's not going to be on a match. It's going to be lower. So this was an interesting one for me, because I did know about the leadership gap, but what I didn't know about was that the leadership gap doesn't just work for results in the external, such as like what actions that you take and what you do, but it also works in terms of character. And if your character is not like a gold standard of a 10, you can't expect that the character of the people who you're leading is going to be any higher. And then it goes even further than that, which is, as a leader, you are not just going to, if you're truly like a high level leader, let's say now, and you're not just impacting other people, but your impact also has indirect impact. So you're directly working with maybe 10, 20 odd people. And think about someone like Jesus, like, his indirect impact has gone on to extend beyond millennia. So your indirect impact is always going to be a lagging reflection of your direct impact. And when you look at every one of the greatest leaders of all time, this is something that they were aware about. They were aware that when you have this ripple effect of initially the pebble hitting the pond or the river, then although it can extend wider and wider, like, there's not going to be as much of a strong visual circle that you can see as you go further and further out, but that energy has still been passed on, and the waves are passed through. So it's the same thing in leadership, is that if your integrity, your character is a 10 to begin with, then maybe you can expect that some of your leaders are going to have a 7 to 9 level leadership who are direct to you. But then people who are indirect, the problem now is that chances are they're going to start reflecting the leadership gap of the next level. So the next generation of people, they're going to have a leadership between 4 to 7 maybe. And then beyond that, the next generation could be 2 to 4 and then 1 to 2. So you see how important it is to make sure that you set a standard that's like so high, because otherwise it's just going to mean that when things start duplicating, it's going to cause mess. And that's not what you want. You want it to be that you are personally responsible for as many layers of duplication as possible. Welcome, Yasmin. You came in at a good time. I was just talking a little bit. Wa alaikum salam. I was just talking about integrity in leadership. So if you've got any comments, questions, you can drop in, let us know.
I might come up with something as you speak, so go on.
Sure. That's what tends to happen. And I just been speaking. It's crazy. It's already been 20 minutes and I've just been talking about leadership and integrity. But to give you a quick summary of what I was expressing is that in leadership, there's this thing called the leadership gap. And how it works is that if you have a standard which is like a 10 out of 10 in a particular area, I know you're good with social media. So if your standard is like a 7 out of 10 on Instagram, social media, the expectation that you want to have as a leader is that the people who are going to be following in your footsteps are probably going to be a 4 or a 5 out of 10. So there's always going to be a gap in skill. And I was saying that for me, I always knew that there would be a skill gap. I always knew that there would be a results gap. But one thing that I didn't foresee was the gap that would exist in terms of character, and that there'd be a character gap. So I was like, oh, it's fine for me to have an integrity that's a level 6 or 7, but then forgot that I'm going to have to also deal with having people that are following me that might have an integrity level that's a 4 or a 5, or have a 3 or a 4. So,
do you think that's because of like the sort of personal development that you go through, that most sort of people, from a 9 to 5 that are just haven't done the same level of personal growth? That's why you have this difference in integrity.
It's actually what I'd say. It's more so about compatibility. So if you're thinking about yourself as a leader, then there's millions of people, billions of people in the world, but who you're going to attract and will want to follow you as their leader, it's probably not going to be somebody who is further ahead of you in their journey most of the time. And there'll be certain things that they are ahead of you in. Like, for example, with your family, like you've got kids. I don't have any kids. So you're ahead of me in that particular area. But the reason why you follow me is because in the areas of which you wanted to improve on, I was able to demonstrate that I had like a stronger level of competence in those areas. So the people who will follow you, like that's going to be the case as well. They're going to be behind you in certain areas. And most times it's going to be that in the areas that they want to be better in, those are the areas that you're displaying that you have competence within. So if you think about like the type of people who you might attract, you said people that are currently in the 9 to 5, people who are people that have not even done personal development. So you can see your leadership gap with those people, and that's who you'll start attracting. But when you start leveling up, and you'll notice that, okay, maybe your life has transformed now. Maybe your finances have started to double up. Maybe you are living a lifestyle where you're more location free, you're traveling. So who you'll potentially start attracting is somebody who's already in an opportunity, somebody who is doing personal development, and somebody who may be like working in a job, but they actually have read books and they've watched loads of YouTube videos and things like that. So that's what happened for me as well, is that like even before I transitioned to full-time, like I was seeing how the quality of the people who I was attracting initially compared to the ones that I started to attract later on was like night and day difference in terms of the quality, to the point where I was literally like, I was attracting people who had 20, 30 years experience in entrepreneurship and had done so much personal development. They'd invested like 20 grand in personal development. But I was like, you know what, as much as I've not got 20 years in entrepreneurship experience, I'm still better in terms of the skills than where they're at right now, which is why they can follow me, because the time is not the indicator. It's more about what have you gained from that time. And some people just haven't had that same experience during the time, because I just had, I fitted in 10 times more experiences into the short time that I was working, compared to those people who had been doing it for such a long time on and off, that type of thing. So yeah, this is why I'm saying, like, it's so important to level up as much as you possibly can in any one area. Like, you just got to pick an area that is where you want to start being seen as that person who is a respected authority, because there are essentially 5 levels of leadership. So the level number 1 is the position level, where this is you being in a position of leadership, and the only reason that people are following you is because of the title that you have. You know, you're their manager, you're upline, you're their CEO, you're their founder, you're the imam. Like, the only reason that they're following you is because of the name and the title. Otherwise, as soon as you are stripped away from that title, like they would stop following you in a heartbeat. The second type of leadership, the second level, is the relationship level. So this is where people follow you because they actually like you. You have a good connection with them. They relate to you somehow. And that's why they follow, because they're like, yeah, I enjoy this person's company. So that's the second level. The third level is the results level. So the reason why people follow you at this point is because of what you've been able to achieve for yourself. And that could be financially, it could be just in terms of your transformation, but they'll follow you because of what you've done for you. And then the level beyond this is the level which we call people development. So now people will follow you because of what you've done for other people, how you've helped them get results, how you've helped them to transform. And so they'll respect you more than just like being able to do something for you. But the pinnacle level is to follow someone because of simply who they are and what they represent. And that's where you respect them for not just what they've done, but also like their character, what they stand for, and what they symbolize, you know? So what you'll notice is that you will be at different levels of leadership with different people who may be at a similar point in their life. So people who, for example, we were talking about the corporate workers. I know your target audience is like corporate mums. So you might find that you've got some corporate mums who will look at the position that you're in and be like, wow, what she's been able to achieve in such a short space of time. She's made sales online, like she's done it in a high ticket business. She's been able to do so whilst being a mum. And I've just got all these ideas, and she's already in that position. So they'll want to be following you because of the results that you've got for yourself. But then you might also have someone who they're not that bothered about those things in their life, but they might be in a similar position to that other person. And so they'll be like, well, yeah, I can see that she's done all those things in business, but I'm not really that bothered about that. What I really want is I want to be able to have a, I want to be able to have a lifestyle where I'm able to not work and travel all day long. So people might not necessarily have that same level of leadership with you, even though they might be in a similar position. But it then becomes about, like I said, that compatibility and the alignment. Because if they're in alignment with their goals and your goals, then what it means is that you're more likely to be seen as a leader to more people. Whereas if you don't have that alignment, then it's less likely that people will see you as a leader.
So, like with what you were saying, for me, I think, like personally, I think I'm somewhere on the third or fourth, or maybe in between, with the people that I'm attracting, I guess. So some may just be following me because they like the content I'm putting out, and then some may just maybe see, like, through that content, the change that I've gone through, and that may attract them to want to be in a similar position. But I think I'm
Yes.
still far. I don't know. I feel like I'm still far beyond, like behind when it comes to like results. Maybe that's because I'm living my experience. I don't see it from someone else's perspective. Like they may see the change in me more than I do.
Yeah. And I think the biggest shift that I had that like really allowed me to step into my authority when I was having conversations with people, and I didn't have financial results, was I heard something that just was an absolute game changer. Somebody said that the results that come physically, whether it's cash flow or it's you having the luxuries of nicer things, all of that stuff comes last. And people know that inherently as well, even though they might not necessarily be so conscious of it. They will still respect that person who might not necessarily have the final results, but they've got something just before that. So before the physical results, you have the non-physical results. And that is about how you've changed in terms of your character. And when I was one day, like I was going out to the park and I was randomly speaking to this guy who was like a pastor. And it was this pastor from Singapore. Never seen a pastor from Singapore before, but he came up to me and he was talking about God. He was talking about Jesus, and I was like, "This is interesting what you're saying." But one of the things that stood out to me is he said that if God is to give a person riches, wealth, success, like that's easy for him. He does that all day long. But the true miracle is when God changes somebody's character, because it seems like something that's so unchangeable. So if you're showing to people through your content that like, this is who I used to be. I used to be the person that didn't have any confidence. I used to be the person who didn't have much hope. I used to be the person that, didn't have that integrity. But now this is who I've become. I've become a person who is a leader, honest, integral. I've got the traits of leadership. And this is my transformation that's occurred. And if you can show that transformation as well, where it's not just telling people, but you're literally showing it by what you've documented, then that's the most inspiring way, because you've literally got the proof of it. But that's the results that you want to be showing more than anything, and promoting. So it's about self-promotion. And this is one thing that I've had to overcome myself as well, because as someone that doesn't or hasn't wanted to be seen as the type of person that is becoming egotistical, I didn't want to self-promote. I didn't want to like put myself out there and talk about the achievements that I've made and the things that I've done well. But what I realized is that it's not me promoting myself. It's me promoting my testimony, which is because of how God has blessed me. So I'm actually promoting him and using my own story as a vessel for his word to spread more so. So it then becomes a form of worship.
I never thought about it that way.
Yeah. So
it
it's
doesn't have
honoring
to
God.
come from a place of ego, and it can come from a place of humility, just the way you present it.
All praises to God. Like when you start off by saying none of this would have happened without his intervention, without his mercy, and you recognize all of that first, you honor that, then it protects you. It protects your humility.
Yeah.
And then that self-promotion will lead to the attraction of more people who will know why to follow you, because you've shown that this is my journey of transformation. This is who I've become. This is my results. And if you follow in my footsteps, then you'll have what I have. And because they know as well where you're going. So this is the second part of it. It's like there's your present self, there's your past self, and we've talked about them. So in the transformation, there is who you were, now there's who you are, but there's also your future self. And the reason for why people will follow you, a lot of it is going to be based off of the direction that you're going and where you're going. So if all you're going is to a place where it's going to be heaven for you and that's it, then who's going to want to follow you there? Because for them, it might be hell. For them, they might not have a seat. You know, you're like taking a private jet that's got no seats for anybody else. So if where you're going is a place where there's enough space for all the followers to come with you because your vision has expanded, then that's going to make people feel like, wow, if I follow this person, not only am I guaranteed to get into the position that she's in right now, which is better than where I'm at, that her present self, better than my present self, but I have a high chance of potentially running with her towards wherever she's going. And that could potentially mean that I have a shot at being able to make my dreams come true. You know? So a big part of it is just being able to expand that vision so that it's actually big enough for other people's dreams to fit in. And at the end of the day, like, you don't need to have thousands of people who you're personally responsible for in terms of the vision that you've set out for yourself. Even the biggest leaders of all time, like Jesus, you know, he only had 12 whose dreams that he was able to fit his vision within, and then the indirect became the ripple effect of his leadership. So it's the same thing for yourself, where if you are able to make a vision that's just big enough for your group of people that you want to directly impact, you want to directly work with, then that could be it. And it doesn't have to be something that's extreme, but just something that will get people to emotionally connect towards. Because at the end of the day, like, you could have people that are wanting to follow you, but they're just following you because maybe you're saying that I'm making more money, so come and follow me because I'm making more money, or I'm traveling more. But if they're not emotionally connected to that dream, then chances are, like, when things get tough, they will just go and choose somebody else who might be sharing something that is looking like a shiny object. You know, you've yourself had to go through like the shiny object syndrome. So for example, if you yourself had a shiny object syndrome tolerance of like a 5 out of 10, then you best believe that the people who are following you are probably going to experience it like a 3 out of 5. And the thing that I was literally reflecting on today as well was that the price of loyalty is novelty. So if you yourself are able to detach from the novelty, then others who are following you as well, like, they'll go to your vision and they'll be loyal to you as a leader. And this was one of my mistakes that I made as well in my journey, which was tied into the integrity piece. And that was that I was loyal to my opportunity, but I wasn't loyal to my process. So as things started to scale and grow, I was seeking novelty in my process, which then meant, because my loyalty to my process was like a 3 out of 10 instead of an 8, then the leadership reflected that. But when I was really loyal to my process, and that was like a 10 out of 10, like, I was literally doing the basics every single day, few hours a day, other people followed and did so for a few months. And that's the other thing about leadership, is that there's not just a gap in terms of the quality, but there's also a gap in terms of time gap. So the work that you're kind of putting in right now, you're not going to be seeing the returns of that for maybe a few months. And if you do start seeing returns right now, that's not going to be based off of the work that you've been putting in now. It's based off of the work that you were doing from months ago, which is crazy, but that's how this usually pans out.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So when you look at like your level of leadership, like you said, it's about maybe level 3 with people who can see the transformation that you're going on. Like Ben came on the call and was like, yo, he can see. So people are seeing this. It's not just me. People are watching. You might not have hundreds of thousands of followers right now, but you don't need to worry about that. People can see it. And this is one thing I was talking about earlier on in the video as well, is that the leadership doesn't have to just be online. like the leadership can also be how you're showing up in offline situations with people. And for myself, like that has been a big problem because I've noticed how little I've been putting myself out there online, for people to see my growth, my development, the level that I've reached, but how much I was being myself with people to one, like on offline, and then they'll just be blown away. So this is the thing, like you might have it in both areas, but even if you feel like I'm only at level number 2, relationship level, like that's still a pretty good level. There are people who have done amazing things just relating to people, connecting to people. But if you know that like you're not a 4, you know that you're not a 5, there's no point trying to pretend to be. What's better to do is to be authentic and leaning into the thing that is where you're truly at, which is close to where they are. So instead of making it feel like, you know, I'm way further ahead than you are, come follow me, listen to me, I'm gonna teach you, I'm gonna give you all the game. Instead, what you want to do is you want to be able to like sit on the same side of the table of that as them, and just be able to draw out the plan with them and be like, where should we go together? Let's make something fun. Let's do something that we'll enjoy together. And it can be a lot more lighthearted, a lot more like playful. And I think that's the biggest thing that you can lean on. So it doesn't always have to be so serious or things like that. But if you can find the connecting points as to how you're similar, then that's something that's great, especially in your marketing, I would say. I think in your sales, like the leadership gap and becoming an authority is more important over time. And this way to start leveling up that leadership right now for yourself is going to be thinking about how can you start actually helping others to go through the same similar transformation that you've gone through, and what were some of the key things that you've learned on your journey that has helped you become who you are right now, because that's where you're sharing real value to others. And the natural result of that will be people will start going through similar transformations, the transformations that you've gone through, you know? And if you could just get like one person to the level that you're at right now, the level of respect that you'll have from people will be completely different. And what you'll notice is that you'll probably find it easier to get somebody to the level that you're at right now compared to how difficult it was for you.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
Because you know like what they have to go through mentally, emotionally, what skills that what hurdles they're going to run into. And I think when you are like so close to the other person in terms of your level and their level, like it's actually quite helpful because you can truly understand what it's like to be in their position. So like I remember when we were doing door-to-door sales, and in the first week, you know, they'd get you to do everything yourself, but then by week 2 they expected that you were going to train the newest people. And the reason why they didn't get like the business owners to train the new people is because the relatability was way more powerful, because like they were the closest to the front lines and they could pass on the message, which would make the person feel like, yeah, that's exactly how it feels like. So there was that sense of connection. So yeah, like that's going to be your next phase of going through, is like really thinking about what can you do to give to others so that they get to where you're at much, much quicker. And I know that you've made like some ebooks, you've made some materials, resources, and they're all great.
Yeah. Something more
Those are,
practical, I think would be better.
Yeah. I mean, like,
I saw the workbooks that you gave us. I think something towards in that line, where it's not just reading something; it's actually like sort of setting out the questions and then you having to answer them, but like seeing the the path you need to go down just based on the answers you give, like clarity, for example.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
You want to think about like reverse engineer it. So
Mm.
rather than just going with the flow of putting out something that you feel like you want to put out to the world. So I think there's benefit in doing that, to know more about what it is that you actually have as your understanding, result, transformation for yourself personally. But then if you're going to make something for someone, like you're making it for them most of the time. So if you're going to make it for them, then you want to think first, like what's the result that you want them to have by the time that they've finished consuming whatever it is that you're going to give them.
Mm-hmm.
So, like one of my workbooks that I've got is the digital aura, what is it called? Digital aura alchemy. That's what it is. Yeah. And what I was thinking with that is like, because I literally did it for myself. I use AI mostly to make my brand image just seem a little bit more clean. And after doing that, like I was thinking, there's so many people who I look at their personal brand images and I'm just thinking they need cleaning up. So what can I give to those people that's going to really help them have a clean brand image? The result I'm thinking about. And what steps did it take myself in order to have that clean brand image? And just, I wrote those out and thought about literally everything from the mindset to what was the things that I did, what was some of the mistakes that I made. Because if you only give the things that worked, then they'll be thinking to themselves, why don't I try this thing that could work that they've not thought about? But it's like, no, I actually did try that thing. Didn't work too well, so don't even think about it. And that's how you truly save people time, because they can see that, well, I don't even have to consider the alternative options. This person has literally shown that, like, they tested all the different ways. So this kind of validates my method now. And I'm seeing this a lot more on like YouTube, where the content creators, when they're putting out content now that's educational especially, they're saying things like, I made 10,000 YouTube videos and this is how not to do it. So automatically, okay, they've made 10,000. Like, I'm not even going to argue with them at this point. I'm just going to listen and take the advice, because I don't want to make 10,000 to find out what they've now found out,
What not
so
to do.
Exactly. Yeah. But when you think from that standpoint of like, what's the result that you have for yourself to begin with, and then how can you reverse engineer it with the process?
Give someone a clear plan of how to get the same result.
Yeah. Just give them the exact clear plan, step by step, and also don't assume that they know anything. That's the best way to put it.
Like, I get stuck and I think, oh, everyone knows that. Oh, surely they know that. Oh, and then I was like, okay, whatever. I haven't done anything yet.
That is that's the hardest thing as a leader. Like, you literally assume that people are paying attention, they're understanding and comprehending like every word that you're sharing. And sometimes you just can't tell because they're there like smiling, nodding their heads and writing stuff down. But, you know, even when you're doing it in a way where it's your content, it's something of which you're not even getting feedback from them, then it's like you almost have no way of knowing like whether or not they're going to comprehend. So the best way to like go about doing it is to imagine that the person who you're attracting is someone that like they're a high quality person in terms of the alignment with who you'd want to personally be working with, but their comprehension is like absolutely not comprehension, but their grade level almost in that particular area. It's like they're a 5-year-old in that particular area. They're like a baby. So you've got to really spell it out for them step by step, every single thing, and give the explanations with simplicity, not complexity. So that's the main thing, because the ultimate sophistication is simplicity. So how do you make something that is complex simple?
Like break it down to the simplest.
Break it down to the simple.
Break it down, like, isn't it? Like how you'd explain to a child, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, what's the difference between how you talk to a child versus how you talk to an adult?
Language.
Sure.
Language that understand.
Yeah. So you never really want to use language that is not everyday language. So people tend to say that in your content, like you'll start to get like way better engagement as soon as you change the language from like university level to 3rd grade. Like if you just did that in your emails, your content, then you'll get a lot more better response. But and a good example of that is if you watch any of Alex Hormozi's stuff. I mean, the level of business that he's teaching is like the highest level that you could possibly teach on social media, and he's teaching it like a 5-year-old will know what he's talking about. So that's him displaying his mastery and being able to simplify a complex subject for regular people to understand. And part of how he does it is with the words. So that's one thing. What else is it that you would do different when communicating to a child versus communicating to an adult?
Like entertaining, playful.
You'd make it fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if they're not actually enjoying the lessons and the experience, then they're probably going to go and start playing games instead and get distracted. So it's definitely important to be able to make it fun. What do you think makes learning fun?
Well, for me, it's doing things practically, like doing instead of reading, for example.
Okay. Yeah. And to be honest, it was like that for myself as a child too. And probably as an adult too, like actually being able to play the game versus watching somebody else do it.
Yeah.
I'd hate that. I remember like going to events and seeing people talk about sales, and I was just like, I just want to I just want to either do what you're doing or actually be selling. So yeah, I totally agree. Like the more practical stuff that you can get people to do, then that's definitely better.
Mm.
So yeah, like that's one way you can make it fun, get people involved, get people
Mm.
doing stuff. So any other way that you'd speak to a child differently to how you'd speak to an adult, or
Mhm.
make things simple for them?
Simple instruction, rewards after they've done something that you've asked them to do. I'm thinking of my children now. Like, what do I
Yeah.
do?
How do you lead your children is definitely a good way to look at your leadership skill. And I remember.
I'm very practical with them. So I think if I had to teach someone, I would probably do what I do with my children is I tell them something or I say this is how we do it, but then I want them to show me, okay, let's do it together and then they show me they could do it. And I'm like, okay, now you've learned it. Then the next time you do it, you're gonna do it yourself. I'm just gonna watch.
Okay, so that's really good. And what you've got in there, number one, is it's that leadership, leading by example. Here's the demonstration of
Yeah.
how to do it. And once they get to see how it's done perfectly, then they're able to simply believe that it's possible, number one. But number two, they have a model to follow.
Mm.
So rather than giving them just a method, you're giving them a model. And that's really helpful for them. The second thing is you've got the element of actually letting them do it. So that's the practical part. But then to combine, you've got the demonstration and then the duplication of letting them go and do it. Is there anything else as to how you help them through making things simple?
Mm. So what I do with my kids is like I said, and then I show them, and then we do it together, and then they do it themselves.
Mm.
And I allow if I see them making a mistake or doing something that I didn't say to do, or adding their little bit, whatever, I let them do it, and then they see the consequence of not doing it my way and just doing it their own way. So not in a bad way, but just to sort of allow them to be themselves as well. Like they might want to add something else, or you know, sometimes it may be better, sometimes it won't. So I think they need to see they find their space where they're comfortable. Like you know what I mean? Like not everyone's gonna want to follow you word for word. They might want to put their own flavor in.
Yes.
So you gotta allow them to do that.
Yeah. So what it is it's like um, every chess player knows that you can read the books, you can learn certain openings and the rules of the game, but then beyond that, it's like once you know the rules of the game and how to play, you're going to develop your own style of play.
Yeah. And
So
they could
this,
end up doing it better than me in a way. So I wouldn't want to stifle that. I want them to explore.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, and the thing is it's like when you're first giving somebody instruction, you're doing it so that they are able to actually get an experience of playing. Oh, welcome, Catherine. Good to see you on here again. We've just been having a conversation about how Yasmin parents her kids.
Oh, I'm here for it. I'm here for all the parenting stuff. It's such a journey.
Okay. Yeah. Well, the question that I was asking is, in parenting, one of the things that you'll do is you'll make things really simple for your children so that they can experience the results that you want to be able to duplicate within them. So I know that you've got children as well. What's some of the things that's worked for you in being able to simplify for your kids?
Simplify. I think you know, they say that you should let kids be bored if that's the space that they can create from. So I would say we have quite a minimal home space in terms of like there's not loads of toys. There are toys, but there's not like I remember friends like with boxes and boxes of toys that like nobody was even playing with. They were just there.
Yeah.
Because there was just way too many for them to even be appreciated. And we don't do screen time except on the weekends, which is debatable because I know that you can be really selective about screen time and there's a lot of really cool stuff. Like I'm not too selective about what they watch, but they watch everything in Spanish. So whether it's like Spider-Man or an educational show, it will be in Spanish. So it's helped them to be kind of bilingual, even though my Spanish is not even that great. But I think really in terms of simplicity, just even for me as an adult, but also an adult who still has my inner child in me fighting for a space in this life of a lot of adulting, just witnessing them in the simplicity of having nothing to do, like not structuring their time. Like if I'm going to do the dishes and I hear them making up a game in the hallway where they've started playing cricket with wooden spoons, or they're speaking to each other in Spanish, acting out some kind of rescue story that's probably something similar to what they've watched on a superhero thing. It's like just allowing that, like it gives them a lot of time to be in a space of creation rather than being directed. And then when I get a chance to actually join in now at this, because they're 3 years old now, my twins, and they're now at a stage where they will direct play. They'll be like, "Mama, you do this, you go over there. Your name is this, my name is that," and it's like they are literally creating a whole world from having very little stimulus. So I'm appreciating that at the moment at this stage of their lives.
I see. So it's very interesting. You and Yasmin kind of said that you wanted to give your kids a similar experience where you weren't just telling them, what to do and how to be, but you were honoring the creative aspect of them, of which they could maybe make something out of the experience that you couldn't give them yourself, and allowing for that to come through rather than trying to control. And I feel like every one of us has probably experienced the controlling form of leadership, which none of us really appreciated. And that's partly why, like, we will have avoided leadership that was containing so much structure and rigidity. But I personally have also learned that in life there's extremes. So on one extreme, you've got like that feminine, creative, intuitive approach where you're allowing and letting the culture arise from the moment and them being present. But then without the direction, then they lose the other side of it, which is like that masculine leadership as well. And maybe they're getting that from somewhere else, which is then them not necessarily missing out. But personally, what I've realized is that the best form of leadership is a balanced approach where you are giving structure, but not in a controlling way, in a way that allows for them to experience their flow. So that way they start to develop a healthy relationship with structure and don't feel like they should demonize it. But yeah, it's sounding like you are giving your kids a great parenting experience. So they're lucky to have you as a mom. But the reason that we were talking about this is because Yasmin was reflecting on her level of leadership, in that at the moment right now, like, people are more so following her because of the results that she's been able to achieve for herself, but they're not necessarily following her because of the results that she's been able to help others to achieve. And so in doing so, like, you've got to be able to simplify whatever it was that got you to where you're at right now for another person. And that's where the question came in of how you'd speak to a child, simple way, everything like that. So yeah, Yasmin, if you're there right now, like, we've broken down how
I have a feeling that I've missed something because you were fishing for an answer and I didn't give you that. So what was it that I missed?
I'm never fishing. Or always fishing. I don't know, one of the two. But I personally, so this is one thing that I do, and I'm kind of demonstrating a little bit of this to you both as well, is that I believe that in leadership, a lot of it is about being able to help the other person recognize how much that they can lead themselves.
Mm.
And the best way that a person will develop that ability is by learning the art of asking really good quality questions. So I remember when I was out in Montenegro with Anthony, and it took me about a week because he was very receptive as well. So not everybody would be this quick, but it took him, I'd say, about a week to become a real self-led leader. And the reason why is because, like, the first week, number one, he was just watching me work. He was just seeing what I was doing. And he was picking up on just the way that I would wake up, my routine, and how I was showing up. So that was one thing. It was modeling it, like Yasmin, you were saying. Yeah. But the second thing was also just not giving him answers all the time. So sometimes what was happening was he was coming to me with just these questions where I was like, what do you think I am? you think I'm like some type of information device of which you can simply go to whenever you have a question. Like that's not who I am. I'm a lot more than that. But he didn't see me for who I was because he was not taught how to lead himself. So one of the things that I started doing whenever he was coming to me with this little questions, I was like, well, do you know, rather than just giving him the answer, I'd take back control of the conversation and I'd say, well, do you know who else might have the answer to that question? And he was like, no. It's like, okay, I mean, have you ever heard of this person called Google? They're actually really smart, probably smarter than me. You could literally go to Google and ask Google this question. And this is before even ChatGPT was around. So if ChatGPT was around, then I'd have definitely got him to go towards ChatGPT. But he was like, oh yeah, I forgot I could just ask Google. So then he started asking Google, and it was this thing where I noticed the time that it took for his brain to adjust, where initially he was relying on myself for information and answers. And then it started to shift where he'd ask me a question and I just look at him and he'd know exactly what I was going to say. So it's like, I'm gonna go to Google. And he started going to Google more often. So that's one thing that very quickly can help a person to become more self-led, is when they start learning how to learn rather than learning what to learn. So I was teaching him, this is how I get my answers. If I don't know something, I'm going to go to the person that knows, who is available. Because sometimes I might not be available. But if I teach him the skill of being able to learn himself by going to the books, going to the computer, going to AI, then there's a lot more self-leadership there. But then I'd say, like, the pinnacle of that is where a person is able to ask a question and intuitively know the answer. So when I ask you guys these questions, it's like, where are the answers coming from? And it's coming from within. It's coming from your intuition. And recently I've been learning a lot more about the intuition as well, going into the science of it, things like this. But Yasmin already knows this. You might know this about me, Catherine. I like to look at the spelling of words and how all of that correlates to the meaning. So when you even look at the word spelling, it's like it has the word spell inside of it. And what's a spell? A spell is a magical act that a person does in order to make something happen. So whenever we are using our words are casting spells, and it's actually us speaking things into existence, depending on the things that we say. So it's important that we use the right words to help us out. Otherwise, we're just going to create things that we don't want. And I was looking at the word intuition, which when you kind of break it apart, it's a few words in there, which I would say is into the ocean. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. Now we're looking at the ocean, which is water. Is there anything else within that has a similar type of essence? And then I was looking at the word emotion. So when you look at emotion, emotion is energy in motion, and it's ocean again at the end of the word. So this made me realize that it's like, if you can help a person to become more emotionally intelligent rather than just being intelligent through their intellect, then that is the highest level of intelligence that you can possibly give someone, because now they have access to infinite wisdom within. Going into the ocean is symbolic to connecting to the God within and accessing higher wisdom. So that's what I believe it means to go into the ocean, is to go beyond the feelings that we have and go to that deeper space where through stillness you're able to connect to higher wisdom, knowledge, that transcends time and space. So that's what will help you to make somebody become a genius, is like helping them to connect to that part. Because yeah, especially from what I've seen working with women as well, like women tend to be a lot better at this, going within and connecting to how they feel and things like that, and with their intuition. And sometimes like they've just said certain things that never made sense to me at the time. And I was just like, later down the line, months, I was like, how did they know that? They couldn't have known that, but they just said it intuitively. So when I ask questions to people, like really what I'm getting you to do is to look within, rather than looking without. And that develops a belief for yourself as well, that actually, hang on a sec, I do have a lot more answers within that I didn't even know I had access to. And my belief as well is that all the information that we need in order to serve our purpose exists within. Now, that process of looking within for answers may not give us the same level of clarity as if somebody was to spell it out that's already got certain results, which is why I don't recommend like solely relying on your intuition. But sometimes there's moments where all you have to rely on is intuition, because what you're doing is something that like only you were created to do, and nobody else can give you advice on it. So when you think about, like, for example, any new innovation that has come into the world, like there was a time where no one knew how to make electricity. No one knew how to fly a plane. So if they weren't being taught, like, where were they getting the information from? And it was all coming from their intuition. It was all coming from the unknown and not the known. So we have the known within, but we've also got the unknown as well that we can access. And sometimes I'd ask people questions, especially when I'd ask guys, like they tend to hate this. When I'd ask guys questions that they didn't know the answer to, rather than going through a process, a bit like what I saw yourself going through, Catherine, there, like you went through a little bit of a process of just flowing towards the answer, flowing towards the ocean, and eventually came to what your truth was of what you could express from within. But what I tend to find with guys is like, if they don't know the answer, they'll panic, and they're like, "Why are you asking me that question? I don't know the answer to that question," and they'll give up. But that's because they're relying on their known part of themselves as opposed to being able to access part of the unknown. So yeah, I feel like if you can do that for anyone who you're helping to lead, like that is one of the keys to helping them to become more self-led.
Yeah, that makes sense. And like maybe sometimes as well, due to whatever the conditioning may be, perhaps there's like, maybe men are placing unfair expectations on themselves to always have the answer. And to have it at the tip of your fingers. And so that feeling of like having to wait a little while or having to search for it feels uncomfortable, more so perhaps than for women. this is just off the top. I don't know if it, you know,
You're going into the unknown.
Yeah, I mean, having sons has made me think a lot more about, I guess, the male experience.
Mhm. And what have you learned so far?
I'm kind of just learning as I go, I guess. I think it's just a different paradigm for me, because in relating to the male experience, I guess the most tangible ways that I've done that is in how I relate to my father
Mm.
and how I've related to partners. I do also have like male friends, male family members and stuff, but I think the most intense experiences for me have been obviously with my father from birth and later on in life
Mm.
with partners. And I think now, being a single parent especially, I think a lot about where are they going to get their male role models from, because as much as my dad was a loving parent, I don't think that he's not a bad role model. Like, he's very loving, he's very very he's a great granddad. But one, he has never experienced being a black man in this world because he's white, and neither have I, because I'm a woman and I'm raising two sons who are going to have that experience, but they don't have a direct person, like one tangible person in their lives who they can, you know, be supported by, be guided by, or even just, you know, learn from their example.
Mm.
So yeah, it's an interesting one. I think I've gone way off from what your original question was, but yeah, you asked what have I learned so far.
Yeah, it's
I
about like
think,
the masculine.
yeah, I guess coming back to that question, I think what I've learned, especially in like trading war stories with friends who also have boy children around the same age, is like that the physicality of it. And although all children are physically playful, the general consensus is that boys have that little bit extra of needing a real physical outlet for their energy,
Mm.
and having to, I think for me, I have to let that happen. Like, I don't want to ever be a suppressor of it, in terms of like, this is their home, this is where they should be allowed to express themselves, as long as you're not hurting yourselves or each other or me. We need to be able to do that. Like, so there's a boxing thing that we watch on YouTube, which is like a kid's workout. It's called Fruit Punch, and it's like a little kid with boxing gloves, and he's a real kid, but the background is like a computer game.
Mm.
And there's like different fruit will come flying at him, and then depending on which fruit, it's like a different type of punch. Like an uppercut is for a banana, hammer punch is for like kiwi fruit on the floor or whatever. And things like that, or like the fact that I asked a family member to buy them boxing gloves and to buy me a pair of pads for Christmas before they were even 3. Not because I particularly value like physical aggression, but because I know that it's going to be inherently a part of who they are. Even myself, like when I was in my, I'd say like late teens and 20s, I would get like uncontrollable surges of anger, and I would punch stuff. Like I would literally punch the wall and hurt my knuckle because I had to have a physical release for that energy. So like remembering that about myself and knowing that they are little men, it's like just honoring that for them. Like Kenji went through a hitting phase and I found it quite triggering. But I was like, just trying to teach him, like, if you need to, I was like, it's okay to be angry. Like I'm always affirming it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be upset, but it's not okay to hurt me. So if you want to punch something, punch the sofa, punch a pillow. If you need to throw something, make sure you throw something that's not breakable, like kind of reframing the gesture into something that is safe. Is something that I've worked on with varying degrees of success. I wouldn't say it's necessarily got through. I mean, they're only 3.5, but like with anything, like the phase was transitional. It didn't last forever. So just kind of had to navigate it as best I can.
Yeah. One of the things that, is really like what I'd say a core difference between the masculine and the feminine is that, feminine women especially, like one of the biggest concerns that they have usually is, and the fears is like the fear of not being safe. And part of that is because, physically their stature, and the vulnerability there. So that's on the feminine side, but on the masculine side, usually like what their deepest fear is around like not being respected. So one of the ways that, like, if you think about how in animalistic areas, or kingdoms, you could say, the way that you will be able to gain that respect is actually by putting somebody else down. So they're actually just doing what they believe is going to help them to gain that that level of respect that they want to be seen in that way. But if they can be brought up in an environment which is more of a loving, conscious environment, then what the difference is there is that how people are truly respected is not based off of the muscles that they have and the fact that they're the strongest person, but it's based off of how kind they were to somebody else, or based off of their consciousness. So Yasmin, one of the things that she was saying about her kids is like she'll reward her kids when they do things that are exemplary of the behaviors that she would want them to be displaying. I think rewarding is a good way, but then there's a point where it's like, if you just solely rely on reward, it's good initially when you're conditioning a very young child that isn't able to cognitively understand and appreciate the reasons for why the behavior is good. But then if that's all you do to train them until they're like an adult, then when you remove the rewards, the behavior might not necessarily stick, because they don't know why they're doing it. So that's where leadership shifts and it changes a little bit, because it's no longer just about like knowing what is good, because that's the first thing that you've got to be able to do, is like know where are you directing them to. But then you've also got to be able to be the one that can reward them, and then finally you transition to being the one who can more so teach and then facilitate.
Yeah, and then it comes back to like that thing about intrinsic and extrinsic motivation.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I've been thinking about, because like in like the Japanese school system, I don't know if this is true, but I remember reading something about how they don't really have like cleaners and stuff. Like the students of a school will, as part of their day-to-day runnings in the school, like they will take responsibility for the upkeep of the environment and stuff like that, and it will be and I mean, being like, even with regards to that, in that situation it's still extrinsic motivation because you're at school and you're being told that this is what you do. But then it's like, what does that actually program into you? Because they're probably not rewarded per se, but it's like it's something that becomes normal, and it's something that becomes understood, is that we have a collective responsibility towards whatever space we're in, or that's something that like I never really, I definitely do reward, I think, but when it came to like toilet training, for example, somebody gave me a reward chart that had like magnetic little dinosaurs that you could put like kind of like stickers, but they were magnets so that it could be reusable.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is cool, and that like they love dinosaurs, they love magnets, but we ended up just sticking all of the magnets on the fridge and playing with them, because I was like, I'm not the stuff that I had been reading about toilet training was like, you don't want to get into that pattern. Like, rewards have their place, but for that particular thing, you just want it to be a normal part of life because that's what it is. So yeah, we didn't do any of that for toilet training, and it just happened to go really well. I'm not claiming that it went well because I didn't use a reward system. I think I was just very, very lucky, and the Kings were ready, and I just went for it, and it took them like a week and a half between the two of them. But yeah, it's that that fine line between like guiding, directing, and instilling your motivation. Like, do you want to do something because I want you to do it, or do you want to do it because you now understand that it's important to do?
Exactly.
Like, even me just saying thank you so much, like that could be a reward, because it's like they see that I'm happy with them if they've put their clothes in the laundry basket.
And the reverse as well, like you could even withdraw sometimes and not give them the same love if they've not done a particular thing, which is what I experienced quite a lot of as well. So you could punish and reward, but both of them do the same thing, which is to help a person to be conditioned, but not to be developed.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that for me to unpack within myself, actually.
In terms of like,
well, the way you worded it just then, like being conditioned rather than developed, I think maybe that's reflective somewhat of how I was brought up.
do you feel like you were mainly brought up by your father, or was it your mum? Like, which one influenced you?
It's funny because like my mum was always, she was the one who was always there because she worked nights, and she was like around more during the day. But I would say emotionally she was more not as present as my dad. So the time that I did have with my dad, he was more present.
Yeah.
So in terms of like who was the most influential, and we have a lot of stuff in common, which could be testament to him being more influential. Like we're both creative. Like he writes poetry, I write poetry. He was a musician. I've kind of dabbled in music as well. We both we're more the ones who will like sit up around the table suddenly having some deep political discussion, where my mum will just kind of either be sitting on the sidelines or she'll just go to bed. So I feel like I've turned out more similar to my dad, but my mum was probably the one who spent the most time with me, like on a day in, day out kind of basis.
Interesting.
Yeah, at least in early childhood anyway.
Yeah. And it's quite the opposite with myself, where my dad was a lot more physically present, and my mum was not as present, but would be a bit more like, let's say she was more caring towards me. So taking more responsibility for who I was becoming. Whereas my dad was just like, let's just go and play sport together. So, yeah, the dynamic that you shared there is like your mum was more physically present. Do you feel like she was the one that kind of conditioned you a bit more? Or do you feel like it was your dad that did that?
I think possibly, yeah. I think probably more my mum, I would assume. But then I don't know actually. That's a good question. Maybe they both had their roles to play. I feel like I was probably more scared of my dad
Okay.
because he could be a bit shouty.
Yeah.
And I think my mum was too, actually. But maybe I felt less like shaken up by my mum, because my mum, she wasn't really parented herself. Like she was the youngest of 12 children, and she was like very close to one of her older sisters, my auntie Rachel, who's like the closest thing I have to a grandmother on that side, because my actual grandmother passed away before I was born.
Mhm.
But what was interesting about my mum's upbringing in Trinidad was another one of her older sisters was like really abusive to one of my cousins. Like it would have been a social services case in this day and age. Like really cruel punishments and like weird shit. And like she said that she used to cry when my auntie beat my cousin. Like my mum used to cry.
Wow.
And so she came here on her own, the only member of the family from Trinidad who came all the way to the UK. And that whole thing ended with her. Like I don't remember having any like physical punishment or anything. And I kind of feel like my mum was probably quite lost in a way, in terms of like knowing how to parent, because she probably knew what she didn't want to do. But then didn't have all of her family around her to remind her of perhaps aspects of the traditional ways that she did want to do. Married my dad, who also had a crazy childhood, in terms of like his dad worked abroad quite a lot, so wasn't really there. His mum went through like alcoholism and stuff. His siblings were off at boarding school. He had a lot of like emotional abandonment issues and stuff, and again was probably quite lost. Like they both probably had more points of reference for how they didn't want to parent than how they did want to parent. And there wasn't as much we have so much discussion, so much vocabulary nowadays about all these different things, and I think in many ways, like, their generation were kind of just winging it.
Yeah.
So
No.
yeah, in terms of who, I don't know who was more. I feel like I've turned out more like my dad, but I try to be more like my mum.
Interesting. How do you try to be like your mum?
She's just not. She's difficult to get down. Like my dad will go like worst case scenario on anything. Like he'll get really down about something quite easily to the point where it becomes draining. And I think my mum is quite drained by his like depressive tendencies.
Yeah.
Whereas my mum, I wouldn't say I want to be properly like her, because I think she's just part of that generation of old West Indian women who just mask shit and bury it and take it to God and
Yeah.
leave it there. So, but I think just in terms of just being that little bit more lighthearted and just kind of getting on with shit no matter what's going on, like the sky could be falling down and like I'm still gonna cook dinner, my mum's still gonna do the laundry, like we just get on with things. So yeah, that's something I guess that I appreciate about her influence. Although I like in general, I'd say my dad's been more influential.
Sounds like your mum was the one that was a little bit more disciplined in getting the stuff done despite how she would feel. You know that she might have been internally going through a bit of a tough time, but she was always able to just remain lighthearted and continue on doing what was required, what was her responsibility. Whereas your dad was a little bit more emotionally unstable from what it sounds like, and that could have affected sometimes his showing up and like just sometimes taking over, taking control. So it sounds like the reason why you wanted to be a bit more like your mum or try to be more like her is just because she wasn't the example of emotional mastery, but she was better than your dad.
Yeah. She was just more able to hold herself together, I guess. Even up to now, she still is.
Like demonstrates more patience as well.
The patience part, I think at times she leans more towards just straight up emotional absence.
Right.
Like that's become her survival mechanism.
Yeah.
So yeah, she just kind of, she just doesn't engage with certain things. I think that's why my dad seeks me out a lot for like certain conversations, because my mum will just kind of be like, yeah, and then you won't get anything much back. I don't really go to her with anything because I know I won't. Like if now I have such a solid support network of like my soul family, my sisters, even brothers as well. Because I don't have any like blood brothers and sisters or even cousins in this country that I'm close to. But if I want to talk something out, I think both of my parents would probably be like pretty low on the list of people I'd turn to. My dad, because if I'm struggling, he just becomes anxious, wants to fix it, but then can't, and then it becomes like visibly helpless about it. And my mum, because she just she just won't really say anything. Like, even the other day, like a couple of weeks ago, I was in my feelings because this was like week 3 into this flu, and I was getting really drained, really fed up. I was feeling really lonely because I hadn't really been able to spend time with anyone, like see friends or whatever. And I wasn't working at the coffee shop anymore, which was like a massive social, like, community hub kind of thing. So I was just, yeah, feeling really isolated. I didn't have the energy to manage all of the kind of mundane household stuff going on in the house. And my mum called me just to see how I was doing, like if I was recovering from the flu and stuff. And I was kind of like, just indulging in complaining about how shit everything was going that day. Like, I was trying to cook some soup and it was taking a really long time, and my energy had been spent, and I really just wanted to lie down. I had a headache. Um and then my mum just was like, "Oh dear, you're still sick. Oh, well, I hope somehow you get better. Make sure you get some rest. I'm gonna go get on with some laundry and ironing now." And I was just like, "Bro, okay, like, okay, go on then, go on then. Don't offer me any help." Bearing in mind they live 2 minutes away. Like, don't ask me, like, do I need any support with anything in the house? Like, just, "Oh dear, oh, okay, well, yeah, I'm gonna get on with my laundry now. See you later." And I was like, "Okay, bye." And then I ended up crying about it. Because I was like, in that moment, I really just wanted someone to do something, anything, take any of the responsibilities that were off my shoulders. Or even just be there. Just come and sit down and make yourself a cup of tea. That she doesn't even come to my house. Neither of them really come to my house. And we literally live 2 minutes apart. Like, I could drive to their house in 2 minutes.
Mhm.
But it's that, like, it's rare these days that I feel like I want to be held. And if I do, I turn to my sisters. And I'll speak to them and I'll cry it out, and we'll just, yeah, I'll move through it that way. Or if I really create space for myself, I'll journal, or I've been experimenting with tapping recently, which has been pretty cool as well.
So you can self soothe, you can self regulate. You don't have to rely on parents or people, but you have a great support system. Um, and I tend to find that the people who can, like, take care of themselves tend to just attract the people who are also willing to offer that type of support. Um, but what it sounds like you've been going through with your mom is a bit like what I've been going through a little bit with my dad. And like, it's really interesting that you say this now, because I was like journaling on it yesterday, um, as I was writing another one of my books. And when I was going through it, I realized that um, a lot of the time, like, it's not even me that is. I say me, I say like me now, the adult version of who I am doesn't necessarily need to be held or to be seen. But sometimes when I don't experience being held or being seen in moments where I feel like that would be the caring thing to do, it triggers past traumatic experience as I had when I was younger. That then makes the moment that I'm in right now like feel more bigger than it really is, and make the problem bigger than it is. So there was like one experience that I had with my dad like a week or two ago, where I didn't feel that empathy from him that I feel like a human being that would care about another person would have. And because I didn't feel it then it triggered from the past, like moments where I really needed it a lot more as a kid because I couldn't give it to myself the same way. I didn't have that support network. I didn't have an understanding as to why I was feeling the way that I was. But the response was not to just react and then let it stay like that and enable the behavior. But my reaction was that I got angry, I got upset, I cried it all out, everything. I let him know I was angry by saying some nasty stuff. But then afterwards, after the reaction, there was like the phase where I calmed down and I just literally said to him that, I said to my sister actually, because I felt like it was going to be easier for her to facilitate the conversation. But I said, can you help me have a conversation with my dad? I'm going to have a conversation with him. It's going to be a tough conversation. Because when you're speaking to your child about something that you feel like is a behavior that they shouldn't be doing, that's easy because you're in the position of the person who, if you're not going to do it, no one will. But then if your own parent hasn't been parented, who is going to take responsibility for them to stop with the behavior that is hurting them and the people around them? Because maybe they're not as bad as they used to be, but they're probably not aware of the consequences of what this is causing because they've just not been told before. So for myself, like when I was younger, if I did have a problem with my dad, I'd take it to my mom, I'd take it to my siblings, I'd take it to my uncles and aunties, but I never actually said it directly to his face. And I think because of that, he never knew the significance of his actions. So in this conversation, I just literally told him straight to his face. And I was like, in a loving way, not in a way which was shaming him or like making him feel guilty, making him feel totally bad and putting my emotion into it, but speaking to him the way that I would want somebody to speak to me if I was in his position, wasn't aware of how this behavior was having an effect, and would want somebody to deliver that feedback to me, which it wouldn't be, coming at it from that judgmental place, but more like from a place of, I say this with love, but this is me holding up a mirror to you right now as to how it's had an effect on me, how it's had an effect on the people around you that you care about, and how it will continue to have an effect if you don't make changes. And he listened to me for about an hour. And I told my siblings and I told my mum about this, and they were shocked. They were like, one, can't believe you said that to him, because no one talks to him like that, not even his own siblings or his own father. And then two, you actually managed to maintain his attention for an hour in speaking about that particular topic, because usually if somebody brings it up, almost like you said, he'll just say, nod off or walk out the room. But I believe that the reason why, like, I was able to like really get this message through to him is because I wasn't doing it from a place of like, this is for me. I was doing it from a place of service. And I was literally like, this is my intention for you. Like, I really want you to have the best life. I want us to have the best relationship. And that's my pure intention right now. So this is where I can see that there's certain problems and consequences that will come from this. And I believe that if we was to practice or work on these areas, like, these are the benefits. So really it was all of my sales experience coming into play, and working in an area which is one of the most important areas, which is with your family, and leading in a way where there's not just dynamic so it's not just rigid hierarchy, but there's dynamic authority. Just because you're in the position of being my father doesn't necessarily mean that I can't father you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. How did you feel like afterwards?
I mean, the thing for me was that I think I had the biggest emotional release when I reacted. So I just like got really angry at him and cried it out. But that was when I had like the biggest emotional release. But having that conversation was a lot more of a calmer conversation, of which I was able to get all of this off my chest, and it felt empowering. It felt like not only was it empowering for him to show him like who he could be, but also for myself, because I was like, if I can speak up to my dad like that, then there's no one that I don't feel confident to call them out on when they're behaving in that way, because that has been like one of my biggest challenges as a leader, is enabling the behavior of people who I know are going to go into a direction that isn't going to serve them or other people, but then allowing it to happen, and doing it because I just wasn't willing to speak up. So yeah, I felt empowered. I felt lighter, and I did feel like it was a significant conversation. So it was pretty healing. Yeah.
Nice. I feel inspired.
Yeah. Maybe there's a conversation that you got to have with your mum, and chances are like nobody's had that conversation with her, so she's not aware, and she'd probably appreciate it, because that was one of the things that I got as a response from my dad at the end of the conversation. He was like, you know what? Thank you for the conversation. I appreciate this.
Wow. That's amazing.
So yeah, for the longest time, like me and my dad have been, like you said, physically in close proximity. And then when I was about 18, we distanced physically, and emotionally, like there was no connection that we really had. But I felt like both of us wanted to have a better relationship with each other. We just didn't really say it that much. And my dad would try to get that physical proximity back by inviting me to play sports and taking me places and things like this. But for myself, I didn't want to just go back to how things were, because there was a reason for why I was unhappy with our relationship, and that things turned out the way that they did. So yeah, I feel like that conversation could be a true turning point, because not only does it mean that he might change his behavior, but I think what it opens up is this new dynamic where, like, I'm not just seen as the person who is his child. I'm also on a level where I can share with him and he can share with me, and there's a mutual respect that we have for each other. So yeah, for me, it was like it got to a point where I was literally seeing so many reasons for why I had to have this conversation at the moment that I did. And it almost felt like if I didn't have this conversation, I would be being disobedient to what God wanted me to do in that moment. Because yeah, it was like so apparent to me that this was a big cause of his suffering in his life. And if I'm out here serving people from all around the world, why can't I do the same thing for the people who are closest to me? So yeah, it required me to step up definitely as a leader, but that's it's funny. That you would not expect the hardest people to influence would be people around you, but it's easy to serve a stranger, people closer to you.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
So, just background to the question is, I've been called to work with the energy of forgiveness recently, and this all kind of transpired through a conversation I was having with a sister of mine, and I was like, I need to forgive myself.
Yeah.
First and foremost was what I journaled about. But then I was like, I need to write letters of forgiveness to my mum and to my dad.
Yeah.
And I haven't done it yet. I think I'm actually avoiding it.
Yeah.
But prior to the conversation you had, do you feel like you had already forgiven him? So you had the emotional outburst,
Yeah.
and had that layer of release, but that wasn't the end of the conversation, because you went back and you had the conversation again in a more coherent manner. So like in between those two spaces, do you feel like you forgave him?
Okay, this is a great question, and it was definitely a process. So in forgiveness, there's levels to forgiveness, and the highest level of forgiveness is compassion. So that's where you're now not just internally expressing the forgiveness, but it's also an external expression by how you are compassionately going out there and being of service. So that was the end. The beginning was a lot more work, and I had to really do a lot of reflection and find out what was it within me that was causing the blockages and the resentment, that existed within. Where did it come from? What were the moments? And what was the consistent behaviors that were being displayed, as well as the feelings that I was experiencing? And it was really interesting, because what I found was that there was like 3 or 4 moments in my life where I was wounded, I was really hurt, and the feeling was the same, that came from the same behavior from my father as well. So after doing all of that journaling and just kind of writing out my story in detail, it helped me to uncover a lot more as to why that anger and resentment was there from my past. And so I actually remember intuitively about 3 years ago, where I had a similar experience to what I've just had most recently. We had a little bit of an exchange back and forth, and then rather than doing nothing, I reacted, I got angry, and then I just wrote a letter. So I did write my letter, and it helped me to process my emotions and just release what I had to, because I could be angry in that letter. I could tell him everything that I felt, and it was safe for me to do so. So I did that, but then kind of put that aside, and I never shared that with him. I wanted to share with him everything that I'd written in this letter. But what I felt like when I did that was that I was doing it for me. I wasn't doing it for him. And so this next time, it was like, okay, I've been able to process everything that was going on for me. But now if I'm going to go and have this conversation, there's no point going into everything as to how it affected me, because that's not going to be beneficial for him. if I'm going to have this conversation, I might as well do it from a place of genuine service and compassion, and just let him know, like, there's no hard feelings from myself right now. Like, I've been able to forgive, but I've been able to forgive to a level where I can be compassionate and go and help you. So if you haven't written the letter, then definitely 100%, like, that's going to be a game changer when you
Yeah. Yeah, because
do that.
right now I don't even feel ready to have any kind of conversation with either of them, because I feel like I would be way too triggered. Like, I
Yeah.
don't think I've worked through certain things that I would need to work through first before I can be the most, like, potentially the most balanced person in the room.
Yeah. I mean, it was hard for me, even after I wrote the letters. Like, I procrastinated on that conversation for weeks. And again, this is why I knew, like, God really wanted me to do this, because he conspired for different people and events and things to happen in such a way where I was like, it was blatantly obvious that we had to have a conversation.
Mhm.
So your moment will come when, you'll potentially have that conversation. I think a big thing for myself as well was, like, just seeing that my grandfather was in hospital at the time. And I know that him and his father have definitely not had that conversation. And there's things that my dad still definitely hasn't forgiven in his own father, to that level, as well. And, the thought of my grandfather passing away, and, like, my dad still not being able to have, at that age, like, reconcile the situation, made me feel like this could be me. I could be in his position where in a few years time, like, it's too late, and then it's impossible to do the same level of work that I could do right now. So that for me created a little bit of urgency as well within the scenario. But the other way that I was looking at it was, at the end of the day, there's a date to when I'll be able to have that conversation with him whilst he's still here on the earth. But at the end of the day, like, I don't want to wait until his last day to have that conversation. I want it to be that we could potentially have a much better relationship from when I first starting having my kids, and he can be the grandfather that's um, a lot more present and in the atmosphere because of the relationship that I have with him. And that's another conversation that I had where it really made him want to actually make an effort with myself, when I let him know that, like, there could be a reality where in the future you never see your grandkids.
Yeah.
And that just kind of gave him a little bit of a wake-up call. But yeah, it was, again, like, coming from this place of service and just letting him know that at the end of the day, like, I think it would be good for both of us. So if you're in that place right now where it's like, no, couldn't have that conversation with them, definitely not. That's absolutely fine, but you're at a level of awareness which is better than most people. And now it's just about being able to process what's going on. Because what I was finding was, like, whilst I was still wounded, whilst I was still holding that resentment and hadn't healed from those experiences that I had when I was younger, it was just continuing to show up in relationships with people, in my life, friendships, business relationships, and I was scaling what was there on a smaller level. So if you want to scale a business and you've got like 1,000 people who are your clients and you're having relationships with them, like imagine having 1,000 codependent relationships where neither of you are healed and
Yeah.
like at each other's hair. So that's what started to happen for myself. I was like, what's going on? And I had to go back and start doing a lot of the inner work to realize that, okay, I don't want to scale that. I want to scale what's good, because this is what people say about money as well. Like money there's nothing wrong with it. It's just an amplifier. So if you have bad relationships now and you think that money is going to solve the problem, it won't. It'll just amplify the problems, make it very apparent to you as to what they are, and then you'll quickly want to deal with it.
Yeah. No, I'm going to have to journal on that tonight. I'm saying this out loud for accountability purposes. I will take at least one step on this journey tonight.
That would be great. That would be awesome. Like,
yeah,
it's a big step.
Because being a single parent and running 2 self-employed businesses at the same time and a household, you can avoid anything for days, weeks. There's always going to be other fires to put out that stops you from doing some stuff that's important.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's something that, that's something that can be done. I'm not going to get all the way to the end of it this evening, but at least to actually give it some space and actually sit there in the silence with a pen and paper and just see what flows. That it needs to happen.
Yeah. The pen can really be magical. I personally don't use it that often anymore. I either use the voice recordings or I type things out. But I think the most significant thing as well is like just follow the feeling too, because follow where the emotions are. Because at the end of the day, like going back to that analogy that I was talking about in terms of water within, what you've got right now, if there is an area of which in particular relationships from the past, even like you haven't healed them, then there's literally like blockages within the channels within that are making it difficult for you to experience the flow within and the flow of emotions how they're supposed to be. So I'll tell you like what was my experience throughout this whole journey of like coming to forgive my father, was that for the 2 weeks prior, it was like almost every single day I was finding that I was overwhelmed with just how much emotion was coming up, and just there were tears flowing down like every single day, all of this water coming out. And it was crazy, because I'm never normally like that. Like if you ask anybody, do you ever see him cry? Do you ever see him show emotion? And they're like, nope. But there was so much that was trapped within me. So you asked before about how did it feel afterwards. And honestly, the best way that I can describe how it felt was it was literally like in my heart, somebody had just taken out a plug, and there was this open channel where I could actually breathe again. Like that's how it felt. It was like this whole time I wasn't even fully breathing before. And
yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Because
So
like you saying that, especially right now, I still can't breathe properly because one of my nostrils is always blocked, and I've been doing literally everything. You heard me ranting about it yesterday. Like, was it yesterday or the day before?
yeah.
I've been doing sinus rinses, I've been doing steam inhalations, and like all of that stuff just feels like it's clearing my nostrils, but the rest of my head like the whole network of sinuses and whatever else and lymphatic tissue in my brain, I don't know, like all of it still feels blocked up. If I can just clear the little bit of my nose, it's kind of like, yeah, and like the mucus is like, yeah, and I'm still here. Like, so that, and one of the things that was a turning point was I'd had my first like proper attempt of like tapping without any like video guidance or anything. And another herbalist friend of mine had kind of said like, yo, like this is a long time for you to be unwell. Like lungs and sinuses is grief in the Chinese 5 element system. So, and you know, like you think of grief and you're just like, oh, like nobody's died, I'm cool. But when I started to tap and talk about all of the things I was grieving, I was like, it was a lot. And there was definitely a shift, not necessarily in the physical experience of the illness, but just of my energy around it, like how I felt less weighed down by it the next day. And I feel like out of all the stuff that I've thrown at this thing, the one thing that I haven't really dedicated space to is the emotional side and working out what's going on there. Like that's got to be, and like I can say, oh, it's just stress levels, it's because my cortisol is spiking constantly through the day as a mum and blah blah blah, and like that's why my immunity is low. But it's like I know it's something deeper than that. Like there's stagnation that needs to be shifted. And I think what God is telling me is like my business name is There's a Herb for That.
I like
And
that.
it's like, yeah, there's a herb for that. There is a herb for that, but there's no herb for your feelings and your emotional body. Like the herbs will do the stuff with the physical body, but if you're not working on multiple levels towards the same goal, the stuff that you're doing in the physical will have a limited capacity for effectiveness.
Exactly. Because what I've learned recently is that there's basically 4 bodies in healing and in health. So you spoke about the physical body, there is the emotional body, there is the mental body, and there is the spiritual body. And once you've been able to master all 3 of the mental, physical, and emotional, then that's when you can unlock the ability to start working on the spiritual. So most people like they attack the spiritual first, but I don't believe that you can really even experience spiritual transcendence truthfully, like until you've been able to really work on those initial 3 because of the blockages that will occur. So I was watching a video by, one of these guys on YouTube. I think you might have heard of him. He's called Sadhguru. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, one of the things that he was talking about is how, even something like Reiki healing, where you're doing energy work, which is supposed to be for the emotional body, like that can actually be quite damaging for certain people, because if you're doing it with a person that's unconscious and isn't aware of what's causing them to need the emotional healing, then it's just going to become a thing where they start to become dependent on the outer, the outer medicine, when that is not necessarily treating the cause, it's treating the symptom. So the Reiki healing, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's not supposed to replace the actual healing that you do for the cause, and being more precise with what it is that you're actually working on with someone. So for a while, like for myself, like that was my approach to healing too. It was all external. It was like I've got to be able to either listen to the right frequency music. I've got to be able to drink the best, most healthiest liquids and waters and stuff like that. And that was a big part of my journey. But I'd say the biggest thing has been being able to get right to the root cause of whatever it is that is starting to make these symptoms manifest. So yeah, for yourself as well, like because what I personally believe right now is that if your body is having to shut down and communicate to you that, listen, we ain't going to work anymore. We're tired of you ignoring us because, like, this is the only way. It's through pure defiance that your whole body's going to be like, no, we ain't going to work no more. And if it gets to that stage, then it's probably way too late anyway, compared to when you'd have got the first message. So, I believe that like most people, like their body is just screaming at them saying, you've got some work to do in this particular area, but they ignore it. So the body just starts doing more and more outrageous stuff until it completely shuts down. But before then, I'd say like some of the first things that you may experience initially is just, like a bit of a bad feeling that will come up. And you'll know straight away, but the more that you ignore it, procrastinate on it, leave it, then it ends up not just being something that's suppressed, but then it becomes repressed and you don't even know it's there anymore. So in my journey of going through this healing process, it's been a case where it's like certain things in my past, I completely blacked them out. Like I didn't even remember how and what happened there. But then the more that I started to like remove all of this junk and clunk that was in me, that was muddying up like the flow, it just opened up all these memories. And I started to get like really clear, vivid images of like what it was like to be in that place and be in that position. And then I was able to go back, make the inner child like feel truly seen. And when he was, then he was able to release what he should have released in the moment, but instead didn't process it.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to go because I have committed to going to bed by 11.
You don't have much time then.
No, I don't. And I'm actually also meant to be turning my phone off at 10, but that hasn't happened any single day since I set it as a daily goal. And I feel like the reason why I said phone off at 10 was so that I could have like an hour of space to like just do whatever the case may be that's like without any external stimulus. But I feel like this conversation has been part of that process that I had allocated this time for anyway. So it's been, thank you so much. It's been a really valuable discussion and I appreciate your openness and just everything that you've shared.
Yeah. And likewise, it takes two to tango. So it's me just being present and letting whatever has to flow through come through. That's the main idea with these calls. So it's also a testament to your receptivity, your openness, your desire to want to heal and transform. And it's evident by the topic of conversation. Like this is this is not the type of stuff that I speak with everybody about.
Yeah, it's something that doesn't just casually come up in conversation most of the time.
Not with everybody, no. It really doesn't. But to the seekers, then yeah, it tends to happen.
Yeah. It's so funny how, like, the fact that oversharing is even a word. 'Cause it's like, anyway, I'm not even gonna get into that actually, because it's 22:33. I got 27 minutes to journal. I know I'm gonna go over, but yeah, no, I appreciate you. I'll leave it there. And
Yeah, great.
are you gonna be on every night at 8?
Every night.
That's the
Yeah.
intention.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll definitely be back.
Yeah.
I'll yeah, hold me accountable. I'll fill you in on whatever tonight has brought me journaling wise.
Please do. And I know that you sent me a message on school, but I'm not sure like if you get notifications on that or if you're able to see it. But yeah, otherwise you can just let me know back when you jump into one of these lives again.
Yeah, sure. I don't have the notifications on. I tend to keep my notifications off on most apps, but I do know how to access the inbox part, so
Okay.
that's all good.
Yeah. No worries. Sounds good then.
All right then. Well, enjoy the rest of your night, and we'll speak soon.
Thank you. Likewise. Enjoy the journaling.
All right, we'll do. Peace.
Take care. Bye. Peace.
Bye.